Welcome friends to another r/AmITheJerk video. We're gonna have some tough questions to answer here, but one question I have for you right now is could you hit those like and subscribe buttons down below? That said, our first story of the day is by James Allen 6756. Am I the jerk for banning my son's future stepdad from taking him anywhere without consulting me first? My ex-wife and I got divorced 4 years ago. We have a 12-year-old son together, and we share 50-50 custody and are normally on good terms. Thing is, that all changed when my ex-wife's now fiancé came around. He started taking my son out for trips and events without consulting me first. This doesn't happen on my days, obviously, but I don't stop being a parent on days where my son is with his mom and stepdad. I still get a say on what events my son should attend and what places he should go, like I did when we lived together all the time. Last week, I found out that my son's stepdad took him to attend a car racing event without telling me. When I called to inquire about that, he told me my son loves these types of events, but I disagree because they're not child-friendly nor are recommended for him. I told him he had no permission to take him out, but he said he did. Took my ex-wife's permission. I said that is not enough and that he should have called to consult me first. He tried to justify his actions by playing ignorant, but I told him he had no right. I'm the father and I get the final say. Even if he has my ex-wife's permission, that is still not enough. We started arguing and he pushed back, basically telling me to freak off. But I told him that from now on, if he decides to take my son out to attend any event without telling me first, I'd get the cops involved. Doesn't matter that he already had my ex-wife's permission. Clearly, she doesn't care that much when it comes to our son. He hung up and my ex-wife called in the evening, yelling at me about what I told her fiancé. Told me off and said she's the parent too, and I'm being ridiculous just because I vented about how irresponsible her fiancé is and how he's being a terrible role model for our son. She said that I exaggerated and should back off and parent on my own time, but that's an outrageous statement because, like I said, just because I have my son for 3+ days only doesn't mean I stop being his parent the rest of the week. They're going around making me out to be the bad guy, but I'm just trying to set healthy boundaries with this dude who has no idea what it feels like to act like a responsible parent. I feel for OP because it's definitely a tough thing clearly for them, having to deal with their kid being in the care of these people and not being around them. But the ex-wife has every much right to parent their kid as they see fit, as OP does. And unless they're doing something that's actually illegal, that's worth getting the cops involved, they've done nothing wrong. Taking a 12-year-old to a car show is not an inappropriate thing in my eyes. So I think OP is being a jerk here, but I do get it because it's just that protective thing. It's that worrying thing about what's going on with your kid out of your watch. It can be a lot for some people, I'm sure. What do you guys think? Is OP being a jerk in this situation? Let me know in the comments down below. Our next story is by KikiCoco1. Am I the jerk for not paying for flight tickets for my friend and now not wanting to pay for her wedding? For context, we're all in our mid to late 20s. My friend Anna has been engaged for 2 years to Jake, and in the 2 years they've broken up and gotten back together many times. Both want to have a big wedding in a fancy location, but they can't afford it. Anna changes her job every few months, and Jake's still looking for a job that he enjoys. Needless to say, they're both struggling financially. Me and our other mutuals help her with small financial support, but that's it since we also have families. Now, last year, 2 of our friends had destination weddings, and we all had to pay for our travel expenses, but the rest is paid for by the bride. Anna only managed to go to the first wedding with our help. She wanted to bring Jake too, but we refused to pay for his ticket. But she wasn't able to go to the second one since some of us were struggling financially and some didn't want to pay. She's still pretty pissed about that and accused us of intentionally excluding her. Now, both Anna and Jake have decided to get married this year. They planned out everything, but the budget's too much for her. When we pointed it out, she said that we'll all have to help her like we always do. We tried to explain that we can't pay for her wedding, and she started crying, how she grew up poor and never had anything nice. Jake tried to convince us by saying how we're their family and family help each other. I suggested that if they really want an extravagant wedding, they should save their money first, or just get married in court and have another wedding when they're in a good financial state. But they declined and said those things are tacky. They tried every word possible to convince us, and I was the first one to walk out. Since then, Anna's been posting on Facebook that I only care about my money and not our friendship. I think OP is definitely not the jerk here. The fact alone that they were willing to pay for the first wedding ticket for her is more than enough to say you're good friends. The fact that you're willing to remain friends with them when they come to you guys and say, "Hey, can you pay for our wedding?" That alone is enough to say that you're friends with them. If you had people that came to you asking you to pay that much money for things solely for them, I bet a lot of people would just kind of quit talking to you or definitely at least cut down on spending time around you. I know if I had a friend that consistently expected me to pay for things for them, I'd probably be trying to find ways to spend less time around a person like that. Our next story is by EurosNNE. Am I the jerk for telling a guy I find his body hair disgusting? I, 19-year-old female, was in the hot tub with friends. A guy friend made a very obvious conscious effort to look at my underarms. He said that's absolutely disgusting and he's never seen a girl with unshaven underarms, and he's going to have nightmares. I told him his pits are unshaven, and he doesn't even bother to hide them either. He said it's fine since guys are naturally supposed to grow hair and girls aren't. I said most girls find guys' underarm hair disgusting. I do. We're just too polite to comment. He said that's not true at all. I asked the girls, 18-year-old female and 19-year-old female, and they agreed that body hair is just as disgusting on guys. He got mad and said girls are high maintenance, and I said no, guys are. OP is definitely not the jerk, and this guy clearly is a huge jerk. Only guys are supposed to naturally grow underarm hair? What kind of planet does this guy live on? I really sincerely hope they're trying to play super dumb, because if they don't know that almost every adult human grows underarm hair, then I think they still got a lot to figure out about life in general. It's fine for him to have preferences, but to openly judge or put down anybody else because they don't live up to his own preferences, especially on something as trivial as body hair, it's not okay. Our next story is by NoIce512. Am I the jerk for allowing my mom to visit mine and my wife's house against my wife's wishes? My mom is a nightmare and she's always disrespecting people's boundaries while also being entitled. She never liked my wife, not for any serious reason other than the fact that I got married and she couldn't stand seeing me move away from her. My wife gave birth 3 weeks ago to our healthy baby girl. My mom insisted she wanted to be in the delivery room, but my wife only wanted me and her mom in there, but my mom was in the hospital lobby screaming about how she deserves to experience the birth of her grandchild. Whenever my mom visited our house, she would always nitpick everything and judge my wife for being a horrible housewife, and claim she'd be a bad mom as well. Since those remarks, my wife's lost her temper and doesn't want my mom to visit again, and I understand why. Nobody would like to be humiliated in their own house. After my wife gave birth, they kept the baby in the hospital to monitor her for a few days. My wife recovered at home. We got our baby girl back home eventually, and the grandparents wanted to meet her. My wife said she'll only be okay with my mom visiting this once for the baby, as long as she doesn't make any remarks. My mom promised she wouldn't be out of line, but as soon as she stepped on our porch, she started commenting on our front yard not being clean, and that my wife's ridiculous for not cleaning it before getting the baby here. My wife lost her temper and said that she lost every visiting privilege from now on, and that we'll take the baby to her house to meet her once we feel like it. It's been almost 2 weeks and my in-laws have met the baby, so had my father. My mom still hasn't, and my wife doesn't want to see her, and she won't let the baby out of her house yet because she's only days old. My wife had a doctor's appointment yesterday, and I'd stay home with the baby. I saw this as a chance to invite my mom over to see the baby as long as she kept it a secret. She came over, and I told her we have roughly 2 hours before my wife comes back. My mom then wouldn't leave no matter how many times I tried to convince her. My wife came home and saw my mom there cuddling the baby, and she had a full mental breakdown and started screaming at me and her, and she told her to get the freak out of the house. I told my wife to shut the freak up and calm down, and it's also my house and my kid, and if I want my mom to meet my freaking kid at my freaking house, she can't forbid me from doing it, and she has no right to kick my mom out. That led to her kicking me out too, and now I'm staying at my parents until my wife calms down. Am I the jerk for bringing my mom at my house to meet my daughter against my wife's wishes, or is my wife the one being unreasonable? I think this is a situation where you probably need to employ the old, Imagine if you were in their shoes. Imagine if your wife had a mom that was so insufferable and complained about every little thing that you did or didn't do and saying that you were bad at this and that and you'd be a bad dad too. You wouldn't want them around, right? You wouldn't want them to step foot in the house. Going behind your wife's back to invite somebody that makes your wife so miserable inside the house is already enough to be a jerk, let alone not being able to get them away from that situation before the wife comes back and then blowing up at her when she freaks out about it. How about not going behind your wife's back and trying to keep something under her nose the one time she's out of the house for a few hours? Do you guys think OP was out of line here? Let me know. Our next story is by Question Stunning. Am I the jerk for buying a gargantuous amount of milk and chocolate powder? So today, I, 17-year-old male, was drinking some chocolate milk, and my mother barged in my room and started complaining that I was drinking all the milk in the house. I drink about 1 cup of chocolate milk per day. After she was done with her rant, I said okay. I went to Carrefour, it's like Walmart, and I bought 30 liters of milk and 5 kilograms of chocolate powder, Nescau. When she saw me coming with the boxes, she asked why I bought all of that, and I said, milk and chocolate won't be a problem for a while. She's mad at me now, but my father can't stop laughing. So am I the jerk? I don't think OP's the jerk, and if she's mad at you just for the malicious compliance, that's really petty. If she's mad at you for buying a bunch of stuff on your own, then it's totally unjustified because you paid for it. So at that point, who cares if you go and drink a glass of it per day? You paid for it. Enjoy your chocolate milk, man. And our final story of the day is by Stuck Between Two Rocks. Would I be the jerk if I chose to stay home with my husband rather than go to my daughter's wedding? My daughter, 28-year-old female, is marrying a woman, 28-year-old female, and my husband and I have been trying to be as involved as we can without violating our conscience or who we are and what we believe. Ever since our daughter opened up to us about her relationship, we've been staying open-minded, praying, communicating with her about it, asking questions, researching, welcoming the girlfriend into our home and getting to know her, attending online therapy with an LGBT counselor that our daughter paid for, and just overall trying to be a loving presence in our daughter's life. It's a process, and my husband and I have come a long way from where we were, but sometimes we still come across these, what our therapist calls, blocks of resistance that hold us back from supporting our daughter in the way that she may want us to in that moment. And what I really appreciate about this counselor is that she takes our situation into account as well, and is willing to speak up for my husband and I. A few years ago, when our daughter wanted us to attend a gay parade with her, we were hesitant, and our counselor stood by us telling our daughter that it was too soon. But other than the gay parade, things have been pretty smooth up until now. My husband has drawn a hard line about attending the wedding. I was sort of on the fence about attending, but I decided to stick with my husband. Our daughter is pissed. At our last therapy session together a week ago, our daughter said that if we didn't come to the wedding, all the work in progress that we had made would mean nothing to her, and that she would not want us to be a part of her life. Again, the counselor spoke up for us and told our daughter that everyone had their hard boundaries that they would absolutely not cross, and that instead of making ultimatums, it would be better to consider the overall picture rather than letting one moment be the deciding factor of the relationship. I'm paraphrasing, she said it much better, but I think I got the main point. The counselor talked to me privately afterward and told me how her parents hadn't come to her wedding, and they eventually made up 30 years down the line. But that was 30 years of memories that they both had missed out on. Yet, when she talked to her parents about it recently, they said that even as much as it had hurt them not to go, they would have made the same choice because it was just something that they strongly disapproved of. She ended by telling me that she wasn't going to tell me to go or not to go, but to really consider all the pros and cons. So I think the response to this question is going to be varied depending on what people believe. Personally, I think if you love and care about your daughter and the person they're marrying, if they're a good person, regardless of sexuality or gender, if that's a good person, then I think you should be there for your kid on their wedding day and try to support them as much as you can, even if it does go against your beliefs. To me, I see in this situation that the daughter's trying as much as they can to get their parents to accept them, even over a period of years. Like OP said a few years ago about the gay parade thing, so they've been doing this therapy for years. After years of paying and trying to get acceptance, I don't really blame the daughter for feeling like an ultimatum has to be made here. I think OP's a jerk if they decide not to go. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So of all these stories I've read today, which is your favorite and why? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you haven't yet, if you could like and subscribe, that would mean a lot to me. Whatever you do, whether it's liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, all of it helps grow this channel and I appreciate the heck out of it. So until next time, I'll see you all tomorrow with some more stories.